I was young, I was in my 20s, and I thought everything was effectively going to be easy life moving forward. And overnight, everything changed. And that was just a reality of that period of time.
This is a guy that will serve C-suite executives, high net worth individuals, high net worth CEOs, really stressful jobs like poker players, athletes, but literally some of the highest performers on earth who are really trying to fine tune their craft and their mindset. This is the person you want to bring on.
Someone who owns business, they keep making the same amount of money every year. That doesn't make sense. But if you keep finding that, every time I get to this stage, I make a bad investment, probably something's going on in your subconscious mind. None of us can see our blind spots. And if someone tells you, hey, I'm the finished product, I don't need anyone to help me. If somebody's saying, I don't need help anymore, I question if they're still if they're still evolving.
This is really cool today. So this is someone that selfishly, I want to have on the show for me because I have so many issues that I need to work through. And there's nobody better to bring on the show than someone like Elliot Roe. So Elliot is one of the best mindset and performance coaches in the world, quite literally. This is a guy that will serve C-suite executives, high net worth individuals, high net worth CEOs, really stressful jobs like poker players where there's a lot of that stuff that where you really need to have someone in your mind. Elliot's the kind of guy you want to bring on. Athletes, but literally some of the highest performers on earth who are really trying to fine tune their craft and their mindset. This is the person you want to bring on. So it's going to be really cool to dive in today to the mindset of one of the best that's out there in the marketplace. I met Elliot in Utah from a dear friend of mine, Dan Fleischman, that connected us, and it was like magic. The second I met him, I know he'd always be in my life. And he actually challenged me to go into a dark room and strip my mind down. I didn't take him up on it at the time, but I definitely will. So this will be an insight into really what Elliot does and how you can benefit from it. But Elliot, one of the places we always try to steer you to start the show as we extract gold is really the lows of your life. It's so easy to talk about the highs, what you do, your craft, and I know we'll get there quickly, but if you could just start from the place of the Elliot we don't see today, and then as we quickly build up, I'd love to just pull the gold nuggets out along the way, but who was Elliot Roe before the Elliot Roe we see today?
Before this, I think probably the toughest time I had was the 2008 market crash, property crash. So in a previous life, before I was involved in the performance work that I do, I was a sales director for an investment property company. And in 2008, that didn't go too well. So went through being very successful, feeling very successful. And then effectively, overnight as the market crashed, effectively losing everything, the business shut down, the whole industry disappeared for a period of time. And then, looking to move on from there. So that was definitely one of those moments of you think you've made it. I was young, I was in my 20s, and I thought everything was effectively going to be easy life moving forward, and overnight everything changed, and that was just a reality of that period of time.
Yeah, some of the best people I know will describe the darkest years of their life, like quite literally 08. Markets go in cycles, and that was a really bad one. It was an eye-opener, but a lot of people, the scar tissue that got them where they're at today, so many of the best people I know, they credit it to that 2008 crash. And it's funny because I think we're in another market cycle. Who knows where this ends? I was just at a political event, and it does not look good out there. A very grim forecast for the reality of these chickens that are going to come home to roost, especially after what happened over the last 5 years. But that being said, I think mindset's going to be more important now than probably ever as we sort of look into in the future of the unknown, where now pandemics pop up and. This is tough stuff, obviously, so your work's really important to try to steer people into a place that where they can perform optimally in all domains of their life. It's not about money. I always feel like money is the byproduct of just a series of good actions and a lot of passion and just performing at high levels with a craft that you love. That's a byproduct of it. But how did you get into mindset work? Because that's what we know you from today. And what was the link?
Well, so after the property crash, I moved into renewable energy. So I was sourcing solar energy farms, building out solar energy farms, wind farms. And over this period of time, through my childhood, I'd had a severe fear of flying. So was scared of flying, wouldn't fly long haul, turned down free trips to America with friends and things because honestly, I wouldn't sit on a plane that long. It impacted my life pretty substantially. I went to a hypnotherapist and she resolved it in an hour. This was over this period of time. And effectively, she took me through this guided meditation, got really relaxed. And she's talking about different memories that came up that linked to the feeling I would have of flying. And initially it was like turbulence on planes, that made sense. Brought me back to this really early memory of seeing a small plane, a photo of a small plane at my granddad's house and being told it had crashed and killed one of his business partners.
Oh, wow.
What was interesting, she then worked through it. We worked through the memory, sort of, it was a child's logic if that means planes are dangerous. Worked through it, felt differently about flying afterwards.
Wow.
But it wasn't a conscious memory. And I spoke to my parents and they're like, oh yeah, that happened. And I didn't. So it felt like magic to me. And I could fly and not be scared, which was life-changing for me. I now live in America. I genuinely wouldn't live in America if I still had the same fear of flying.
For sure.
So I was doing that, and then I was like, I want to learn this. So in the background, whilst I was working, I went and started getting qualified in this work, thinking it would be a hobby and it would be like a cool skill set to, hey, one of my friends or family, they're struggling with something. I can be like, oh, this is fun. I'll fix you.
Yeah.
That was my
Sure.
Well, that's what I thought this was going to be, is like a fun side hobby and an interesting thing to do. And then, I started working with friends and family and it started working. And when things go well, people recommend their friends and they ask to work with you. And it just started building and building. And I started working with some poker players and they started making an awful lot more money. So, I mean, now it's quite extreme. My clients in poker, it's actually over $200 million they've made now. All of the major tournaments my clients have won. It went extraordinarily well. And because of that, I was introduced to other high performers in other areas, CEOs of companies, Wall Street traders, professional athletes, Olympians. I've worked with a number of UFC champions, professional boxers. It effectively everything came from this natural word of mouth of like, hey, my performance is changing. You should work with Elliot. And over the last, I think, 13 years now, this has just been building momentum, and it's all come from just really a fear of flying, which is quite ironic.
Elliot, since you work so deeply with the unconscious, and I would imagine a lot of your clients haven't read about the unconscious or know very little about hypnotherapy, what are a couple of the most striking things to your clientele about the nature of the mind that kind of blows them away?
I think the key point is that all of the things that people define themselves as with weaknesses, typically they're learned. So any self-sabotage,
from parents,
fear of failure, fear of success, a lot of the time it's parents, sometimes it's teachers, sometimes it's bullying. Like it can be different things that trigger this. But effectively your subconscious is there to protect you. Like that's its job. And if you have a roof over your head, if you have food, I mean, ideally, if you've got a mate as well, your subconscious is like, we're doing a good job. We don't need to push any further.
Yeah.
More is dangerous, right? So it caps you.
Yeah.
Because it's doing its job. It's keeping you safe. Change is dangerous. Staying the same isn't dangerous if you're having all your basic needs met.
Sure.
And the work I'm doing is helping people understand where this cap got put on. And if we're talking financially, for some people that's $50,000, for some it's $100,000, for some it's 5 million, 10 million, whatever it might be. But a lot of people have a place where they're safe reaching, and then they'll just bring themselves back down to that level over and over again. Yeah. You'll see some businesses, someone who owns a business, they keep making the same amount of money every year. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Your business should be growing.
100%.
But if you keep finding that, hey, it's coming back to the same level, it's coming back to the same level. Oh, every time I get to this stage, I make a bad investment. Probably something's going on in your subconscious mind.
Yeah. I hear constantly about people being stuck. So this idea of being stuck, is that really fear that's holding them in place?
It's a protection mechanism. So really the way I view this is as we evolved, it was very useful to pick up fears from your parents quickly. So you're in the jungle, there's a tiger, your mum starts screaming, you're now scared of tigers.
Right,
That
makes
keeps
sense.
you alive,
Yeah.
right? So, and also, rejection from the tribe meant death
Yeah.
when we're a tribal culture. So, if you were kicked out of the tribe, you went into the forest, you died, right? So it's very important that you don't upset people and you're not judged too harshly. So these are things that are picked up, but in the modern world they're not useful. But they were incredibly useful for 100,000 years.
Sure.
It's just in the modern world they're not.
Do you find, Elliot, that I see this? At least this is my observation. A lot of people that are actually quite monetarily successful, some of the drive is also like an unconscious protection mechanism. Have you worked with the flip of clients that earn a great deal, but they're anxious or restless? Could you speak to that?
So a lot of the time I'm working with people through this whole cycle. So they'll come to me and they'll be looking to make an amount of money that they believe will fix their problems, right? It doesn't. So, and sometimes they'll get extraordinarily wealthy. I've had people, make over $100 million working with me previously in different industries and things. And it doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
And then we have to look into the real problems behind it. But there is certainly this, hey, I'll be good enough when.
Sure.
And they have a number, but what I've noticed is when they hit the number, typically the people who believe that, they just increase the number. And then they increase the number, and then they increase the number. And they're chasing something that's not attainable.
Yeah.
I mean, we describe it in some of the courses we run and things as there is no happy ever after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? It's a journey, and when someone thinks, hey, if I get an Olympic medal, then I'll be happy, it's just not true. You're happy for the day, you might be happy for a week,
Yeah.
but then it's what's next. And anything that we set as an external goal, it can be fun and it can be a great story, but really it's the journey there and the learning and the evolution, the growth of you as a person, and then you mentoring people afterwards.
Yeah, the give back.
That actually, the give back is actually where I find people get most out of everything.
This is tough because you see me smiling. I'm just smiling right now. I love this conversation, and there's so many different rabbit holes we can go down, snake holes that we can slither for hours in. We got a hard hour with Elliot. We may have to do 2 versions of this. Part 2 coming up next. I'm already saying it early on, because you spark so many questions in my mind that I think would be really interesting to the audience. But I love studying the high performers and the craft and really where the talent meets its match. At some level in football, like everyone's so good. The differences are nano differences that are the separators between the greats of all time and just good athletes. They all kind of look the same. They perform the same. They play at such high levels. So there's these difference makers. But let me bring it back to a practical question. I think pertains to this a little bit. But from your line of work, so many people out there are looking for the next breakthrough. They have big dreams. They want to become financially free. What is the difference maker? Like when you really study the nature of your top performers, even though they're flawed when they probably come to you and there's a lot of holes you expose, what's one common thing that you must have to be successful? Like one identifying mark that if you don't have it, you're probably not going to do anything worthwhile in this life. You're going to be stuck forever chasing your tail. Let's start with a baseline of what a good, solid guy looks like that comes to you, because most likely at your price point, the demand that's around you, you're already dealing with high achievers. So what is a requirement for that type of person before they even meet you?
So there isn't the one thing that fixes everything. So just as a starting point, there are some themes. So one is a growth rather than a fixed mindset past a certain level is just needed.
Okay.
So you need to have a growth mindset. You can get successful, but you can't get to the top in the world with a fixed mindset. I just haven't seen it happen. Decisive action is incredibly important, and I see that with high performers. So they fire the member of staff they have to fire. They ask for the investment when it's uncomfortable. They make the sales call. It's that decisive. It's the uncomfortable thing that some people stall on.
Yeah.
They're happy to pull that trigger. That's scheduling, making everything fit. Again, is something I see in the high performers. Nearly all of them look after themselves.
What about this?
It is very rare that I see an unhealthy, unfit high performer. Like extraordinarily rare. Sorry, Eric.
No, I'm squeezing thoughts as they come because this is so good. I'm trying to get all these dragons on the table before they disappear. But I see this so often in people that I look up to the most is they leverage their pain from their past. They have a deep, dark dragon that they're fighting in their soul. Now, I don't know if this is good or bad, but it's these deep embedded chips on their shoulder that they fully leverage throughout their life. They walk into fear oftentimes because the pain of not doing it from that deep-seated thing that either I don't know if they're running from it or they're chasing it. For me, I describe it as like, it's almost like something I can't quite get where I'm going. And there's something chasing me. I can't quite get away from it. It's this place between like I don't know if my fears, that I'm running from my fears and I'm chasing my dreams, but I'm stuck in that. And what it's done for me personally, it's kept me in a forward state of momentum constantly. But it does leave me very little peace because I'm always in a state of, and I'm trying now at this point in my life to grapple with that.
So again, I think that's one of the drivers that gets you to a certain level. But in most cases, overcoming that is where we see like another exponential performance.
It's amazing.
Because there's a burnout that happens with that. Yeah. So yes, it can motivate you. It can push you past the baseline. It can get you to high achieving. But the energy burn means it's unlikely you're going to be literally the number one in the world.
Sure.
If you're being driven just purely by fear, because the energy burn is just too high. So I mean, there are a number of these types of factors, but one of the key exercises that I ask my clients to do, which anyone can do here, just listening to this, is create a list of what the top performer in your industry does, like a really comprehensive list, right? Spend 15, 20 minutes building out this list of, hey, the number one guy or the number one guys, like the people who are at the very top. What's the list of things I see them doing? And you build out this long list in front of you, and then you go through it, and you put a ticker across next to the stuff you're doing, right? And then we know that this isn't an informational issue. This is a mindset issue if you're not doing those things because you already know what to do and you're not doing it.
Yeah, right. That's good.
Right?
This is really something good. I caught. You said it brilliantly. So I used to work as a psychotherapist, and now I'm a executive life business coach. And you said something that really caught my ear, which is, I can't remember how you phrase it, but basically pay attention to your life and look at the things you're not doing that you know you ought to be. And you repetitively have this cycle, and that's exactly where you ought to apply the hypnotherapy approach. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, so we create this list. So you've now got a list, and there's ticks and crosses next to it, right? Some of these things there's going to be an emotional response to. So it's like, hey, this guy who's at the top of the industry, he does his social media every day. How do I feel about doing social media every day? Okay, it makes me feel physically sick inside. It makes me feel tense. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, that's an emotional issue. This isn't strategy. You know you should be doing it. Where is that emotional, physical sensation coming from? And that's where I'll do the deep work with someone to understand the root cause of that issue so that we can reframe and work through it. So the thing they know they should be doing, they're now capable of doing with no resistance.
Amazing.
And it's this cycle of refining and refining and refining. And someone who's at the beginning of their career, someone who's struggling, they might have a huge list. But my real expertise is taking someone who's already in the top 10 in the world, top 50 in the world, working out the gaps from someone who's top 10 to number one and doing that final piece of work. So I don't take people from 20% to 50%. I'm working with people who are at 97%, but 98% means they win the medal.
It's like logarithmic.
And it's like, it's like this very small fine tuning with extreme high performers, because the 1%, the difference in the 1%, when it's top 10 in the world to number one in the world, the money is like 10x bigger.
You're right.
It's logarithmic.
So all of the money, all of the money is in that very top end of performance, whether that's in stock trading, professional gambling, poker, professional athletes, even CEOs, the way your company performs. We get multiples on an exit. Your company doesn't have to do that much better for you to make an extraordinary large amount on your exit. Yeah, like it's all sort of amplified.
One thing I'm noticing, I've gotten near some really high performers. Just this week, I was around some of the most famous politicians in the world. I'm quite literally that from some of the most famous families in the world. And as I get near these people, I can't help but like size up to them. Like, I just can't. Like, it's always been in my mind. Like, maybe it's a bigger question. Like, why, if you don't think number one in the world, like, is there something that is flawed in you, like, why wouldn't you want to be number one? I always challenge people with that thought first and foremost, but I naturally do it. And it's just an instinct in me to really study the people. And I love it. It's a passion, right? It's almost a game, and I have fun with it. But I notice a lot of these people that may be number one to something, and then I get near them. Oftentimes I'm not that impressed. Like, you can see the lack of discipline in many other domains of their life, but yeah, they may be number one in one avenue of their life. And to me, that's a failure. Like, if my physical body doesn't represent my mindset, I failed. I want that to be sharp, tight, like showing discipline in all areas of my life. And so often you'll see one person that literally could crush you with the power that they have, but they may be lacking here, here, and here. So this search for me for a real balance between the domains of my life, being the number one, everything is really important for me. It doesn't seem to be as important for people that are really focusing in on one topic. And I sort of recognize it comes down to one thing. These people have mastered leverage. They have power, and they understand leverage. And it may be one of the big differences between people that are truly successful with their craft is they've mastered that, but not in most cases have they mastered many of the other domains that I think may be even more important in some cases than just the financial wins in life.
So a couple of the things that you mentioned there. One, as I say, I typically take people to success, and then we're working on the other areas.
Right.
The health, the family, the relationships, all of those things bring genuinely more happiness than just the money does once you get past a certain stage. But another thing you mentioned was, hey, Elliot, these powerful people from powerful families, that doesn't mean someone's a high performer.
No.
In a lot of those situations, they were gifted that opportunity. I wouldn't match myself up against people who've inherited
For sure.
success and power. That doesn't seem like a rational person to be questioned. That they're living a different life. They're in a different reality. It's not really relevant. If you're looking for the people to sort of emulate, I would say it's those who've managed to grow through adversity and have managed to reach the top of their domain without being gifted.
Totally agree.
So that would be one key part there. And from what you said at the beginning of that statement, hey, I match myself against these high performers. You should. Yeah. I mean, I'm extremely biased. I work with high performers in different areas. If you're in anything, it doesn't make sense to not try and be number one because all of the rewards are number one. I mean, one of the examples I give of this is like some people like baking cakes, right? If you're the best cake baker in the world, you can be really rich baking cakes. If literally you make the best wedding cake in the world, you're going to be very wealthy making those wedding cakes. 99% of people who bake cakes probably make $15 an hour. And then there's probably one person, it's $50,000 for the best wedding cake in the world.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's all of the rewards are at the top. So I think you should always it's just rational to push yourself, and usually the gap's very small. It's the little bit extra.
Sure.
The difference between the person at number 10 and number 1, it's not like it's a dramatic difference in work.
No,
it's just a better use of their time. It's doing the harder thing. It's the thing you don't quite want to do. As you say, it's the leverage. But I would always say, hey, who's in my industry? Who's the top of the industry? What can I do to make sure I'm as close to the top of that as I can possibly be? Obviously sometimes sports, I'm never going to be in the NBA. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be. But if you're in your industry and you've got some capacity to reach the top, I would say you should be looking to do that.
It always surprises me how many people I come around that want more out of life, but they'll never see themselves up here as the best at what they do. And right there, I think it's a flaw because I really, as I study these people, I realize it's happened up here long before it's manufactured here. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't see it, it won't happen. And so many people, I don't think it's that they have big dreams that they don't achieve. I think it's that they have small dreams that they achieve, and the satisfaction around that is what gets them stuck in this comfort bubble. And again, connecting what you do in your craft to sort of the reality of the mindsets of the people at the top, they think big, do they not? Do they see the end, all the way to the end, to number one in the world, long, long, long before it happens?
Yeah, I think you have to be able to visualize yourself as a success. You have to see that you can be competitive. And as you say, when you meet these people, I meet a large amount of successful people, as you can imagine. It is a, hey, what are they doing that I'm not? Is there something I can shift? Is there something I can change? Is there somewhere I can fine tune? But certainly that idea of the end goal, like in my case, coming into high performance coaching, relatively early on, I was looking at this and saying, okay, well, what would it take for me to be working with the Olympic medalists, with the champions in sports? What would it take for me to be working with, CEOs of multinational companies? That was, as soon as I was taking this as a profession, they were the goals for it. I didn't want to be working with the local executive. Like, it didn't make sense to me for that to be my goal. I wanted to be international. I wanted to be working with the most powerful people in the world, because then I can have the biggest impact and help the most people. Like, it's just, everything's leveraged.
You're jacking me up, bro. You're jacking me up.
It's just reality.
I'm getting pumped.
Elliot, what you have such a understated kind of relaxed temperament, like a real at easeness, which is attractive. It stands out actually, if you, in terms of people we interview, in terms of, there's kind of a groundedness in your being. What is success to you? You started to allude to it. You started to answer the question that came to my mind, but I'm curious, for the mindset performance coach who looks at the totality of people's lives, what is success for Elliot Roe? Not only professionally, but even in I'm curious about your family, your interests.
So success for me is a fully balanced life where I'm impacting as many people as possible through leveraged work. I have two 9-year-old twins. We live in the mountains in Utah. We have a pretty balanced life. So I'm very happy on the family side.
Wonderful.
Then it's health and fitness. I take that relatively seriously. Work out 5 days a week, do all of the self-care stuff. I was in a sauna and a cold plunge 6 o'clock this morning. All of those bits and pieces. But then for me, professionally, it's now less about like, hey, I'm trying to hit a certain number. That's not really that relevant. I'm in a fortunate situation where I don't need to hit big numbers. We're very comfortable, but I want the stories. So for me, it's taking on the client who, when we get the result, I'm a part of a bigger story, and I can see an impact that I'm having. I mean, it might be a professional sport, but it might be impacting a nation.
Yeah.
It might be, I've worked with people like, sending satellites into space, like all sorts of interesting things. And for me, it's my career is now building interesting stories so that when I'm 80 and I'm looking back, I can be like, hey, I helped this person do this person do this person. I was working with the Olympic flag carrier this year for the Winter Olympics. Just like story after story after story, and it's just really fun for me. So,
and I think
so that's success now. Like,
I like the money. There's always a byproduct of chasing the real why or the real story, and that should become the dominating theme in someone's life. Is they should be really after the impact, the marks they're going to leave on the world. And when you think about big marks, like really influential big marks that matter, that actually help change the world, now you're thinking at a scale that forces you to think best in class. Like, quite literally, number one in the world should be a dominating theme in your life when you're considering that you're going to possibly make the biggest impacts in the world. Money's always a byproduct of that type of thinking. So many people, I think, put money first, and it's just a big flaw in life.
Eric, I'll be honest. I think this was the big lesson for me with 2008, and then the sort of renewable energy investment work. In honesty, I never had a big passion for property. I quite liked the fact I was doing good stuff with renewable energy, but I didn't have a passion for it. I was in those industries because they were good money. I could make good money, like in those industries. Like that was what I was looking for.
Right. Good point.
I then moved into performance work thinking it would have no money in it, but I was moving to my passion. And I was thinking, maybe I'll do okay, but this is so fun, I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And then doing the thing that was my passion and was helping people, as you say, when you start to have that impact, it's impossible to not be rewarded for it.
This reminds me of a gem you dropped on one of your social media accounts, which is, sticking with something long-term is impossible if it's not deep part of your identity and your vision, right?
Yeah, and your soul.
It was a nugget you dropped, and it's so true. Like, people are so self-aggressive with themselves because they can't consistently keep with something.
That's so true.
And speak more to that. I mean, you demonstrate it in your own life.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where it needs to be a part of you. You need to see me. So I am, if you meet me, I am a mindset and performance coach. Like
Yeah.
that is who I am in life.
Yeah.
That is how I come across. This is what I like talking about more than anything else. It is what I do. It is who I am. If I win the lottery next week, I will still see all of my clients next week. And nothing will change.
Me too. I get it.
I'll still doing all of the same things will happen if I have infinite wealth because I'm doing the thing I want to be doing. If you're going to work and you're like, I want to win the lottery so I can quit my job, you're never going to reach the highest levels of that because it's a different level of passion. You're not doing it because it's innately you. You're doing it to pay your bills. And I think it's very difficult to become very high end at something if you're not doing it out of passion.
Every person in the world right now who would hear this statement will 1,000% resonate with it. That when you're doing what you love, like when you dream about it and you wake up teeming with energy, like there's no such thing as weekends. Like do you know what I mean? Like I'm always connected to my work. I'm always thinking about how to plus it, how to pour heart and soul even every day into this, whether like it doesn't even matter what the circumstances around that are. And it's part of your DNA. It's like it's almost like the meaning of life for the person.
Yeah.
It gives you a sense of real purpose and clarity around it. But I find that the people that have the most impact in the world, they are in love with their craft. They're obsessed with it. They're literally like, oh man, it's a really cool thing to be around because it's contagious. When you're around someone that loves what they do, oftentimes it's a mirror to you and it makes you reflect. You can have such a profound effect on people just by doing what you love and showing up every day, like and pouring your heart into it. You wonder like why people work tirelessly for their craft. It's because their heart pours out for it, beats for it.
And it's because it's not really working. A bit like you said with the weekend. It's like, hey, will I talk to my clients at the weekend? Of course I will. It's interesting for talking to my clients.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no 9 to 5.
The day of the week's not relevant.
I was just talking with a coach friend of mine, and I'm working on this book. And speaking to this, I'm going to selfishly ask a coach-to-coach question to you. Yeah. But we were talking. I'm working on this book, and I'm thinking about. I'm having an artist do illustrations for it, and I'm like, what could I have him draw? And I'm looking all around my office, like images, paintings, things that are, like you say, it's totally who I am. And one of the things that I most love to talk about are spiritual matters, like what is God to someone? How does their faith inspire their life? Whatever their particular denomination. So I want to selfishly ask a question of you of that, because it's to me one of the most powerful domains of life, and one of the most, for me, I want to know it about someone more than I want to know about their money, let's say. So for you, how would you characterize your spiritual life? Like what are you and why are you here?
So I think I'm here to help others. So that's what I feel is the purpose, is to leave the world in a better place than when you showed up. Like to feel like you've had an impact and you've helped other people live a better life. So that's what I believe from that side. From a religious perspective, I don't have a fixed religion. I'm spiritual, not religious. Yeah. So I believe in a sort of a universal everything. I believe in, say, I guess a universal consciousness.
Yeah.
But I don't adhere to any particular specific religion.
Sure. Do you have your own meditation or prayer practice attached to that? Do you meditate?
So every day, 5 days a week, I start the day with a sauna, as I described, and I use that as my meditation time. So I find that a really useful,
meditating
really
in the
useful
sauna
process.
is amazing.
Meditate in the sauna, do that for about 30 minutes, go and do a cold plunge, shock my body, get ready for work.
Yeah.
So that's my personal
Me too.
meditation practice around this.
I follow the same thing. I blend like the physical pain with the higher self, the powers that are much greater than me, and I attach that right to God itself. I want to go back to something that I think is going to continue to serve the audience and get a little deeper into it, which is this idea of fear. You take people through a unique process. You were going to do it on me in Utah. We just didn't have the time to do it there, but where you were going to strip my mind down and really figure out what are the things that may be truly holding me back? That's kind of the best way I would describe it in one sentence, I suppose. But I do think fear is one of the things that every single person has, and it creates limitations most likely in their lives that are fake. They're not real, but yet they still trap people.
Yeah.
Those fears are illogical in most cases. Walk us through the process of how you strip the mind down to grapple with that fear and then overcome it, because I think this could be really profound for so many people.
So if we go back to that list of the things that make you uncomfortable. So the list of, hey, the best in the world does this. I don't want to do the social media. I don't want to do the public speaking, whatever it might be.
Sure.
So we have a starting point. We know that someone's holding themselves back. They know what they should be doing, but they're not capable of doing it. Right? So that's our starting point. So we know it's not a lack of knowledge. It's an emotion that's getting in the way. Right? We then, with the hypnotherapy, with the hypnosis, you go through a guided meditation process. There's no magic to this. It's not like a stage show.
Yeah.
This is just guided meditation. The client becomes very relaxed, and then their subconscious becomes dominant. So we're using guided imagery to make the subconscious dominant over the conscious mind. And then I'll be saying, how does it feel when you think about posting on social media? And they'll say, I feel sick. I feel tension. I feel so uncomfortable in my body. Or how do I feel with public speaking? I feel this anxiety when I get on stage.
Yeah.
I feel this tension in my chest. Excellent. I'm going to count you back from 5 to 1 to another time you felt like that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's the next memory you think of? And the next memory and the next memory. And it brings up this list of memories that explain the issue. And oftentimes it goes back to childhood, it goes back to being bullied, it goes back to feeling unloved by a parent, it goes back to a teacher saying that you'll never amount to anything, you're a stupid kid in class, whatever it might be. And it's the child taking on whatever information as truth and effectively creating a defense mechanism around that.
Yeah.
So, hey, me speaking in class, I got mocked by the other kids and the teacher. Hey, it's dangerous for me to speak my truth. Right? Yeah. We then reframe those memories. So the child saw this as life and death. The adult you looking back can see that this is just a teacher doing their job poorly.
Yeah.
So we bring love to the memory. We bring an adult rationality to the memory, and we effectively overwrite the memory. Memory is malleable. It changes every time we go back to it. And we're effectively taking something from a keystone core memory of like adrenaline, fight or flight to show that child love. Give them a hug. Tell them they're okay. What advice would you give that younger you? How would you help them through it? Yeah. How could things be different? And then the trigger is no longer there in the same way. So when you go on stage, the 5-year-old you who'd been mocked at school by the other kids, that's not firing. It's not saying, hey, you're in danger, you're in danger, you're in danger. The trigger isn't there any longer. And there's always a trigger if there's a physical response. Otherwise, the subconscious wouldn't be making the physical response. Yeah. So it always comes from somewhere. Yeah. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be there. We've just got to find out what the trigger is and then reframe it correctly so that it's not firing in the same way. And that's a very basic version of the process that I'm running.
Is it true in all fears? Like, I'll give you an example in me. I got a lot of issues, obviously, but I never had a fear of death per se. I always thought death was so far away in my life when I was a kid. And then I started losing some people that had profound effects in my life. And how it affected me was really kind of unique. It started bringing me to my own deathbed. It literally, it fast forwarded almost like it's happening right now. I could imagine myself in the last moments and the last breaths of my life, and it really haunted me. My wife would look at me and say, "What's wrong with you?" Like, I'm laying in bed at night, oftentimes at night, like thinking about those last moments, and it was the pain of losing people I love so much really brought mortality as a fast-forwarding thing in my life and put a lot of pressure on me. I naturally have always got to find solutions for problems in my life, but I didn't seek out professional help. I come up with my own solutions. And what I came to the conclusion of is it actually became, I think, a superpower of mine that I would leverage death into every situation. It would get me to jump. Instead of not jumping, I now jump because I'm going to die soon. Like, it actually became such a fast forward mover in my life that I actually now kind of teach this as part of my ability to be present right here, right now, pour your heart out, not give a fuck what people think. Like, just even in how I say that, I can say that with this authority that I don't care because I'm going to die. Like, that may be wrong. I don't know. But somehow it silenced the fear of death just enough and it's created a lot of momentum in my life. Now I'm doing very brash things. I'm far less concerned. People think I'm stepping in the light. I'm on stage now because I am so aware that my mortality is close, that if I ever am going to make a mark, I better do it now. But it doesn't mean I handled it the right way per se. I don't know, but at the end of the day, that was really a profound fear that came up in my life. I don't think it was somewhere that started from an early childhood, because I never thought about it. And now it dominates this conversation. Like when I talk to you, I'm very aware of something that's beneath the surface. And that means I'm going to give you everything I have. And it sort of strips out the things that don't matter, and it leaves only the things that matter in my life. So I think I've leveraged it the right way. But that fear was literally would stop me in my tracks before I figured out my own solutions to it. I don't know if there's anything worthwhile here, but some of these fears that are hard to put a finger on of how you're going to solve that for the person might be, interesting to dive into a little bit.
I think mortality is an incredible motivation tool.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to the mortality question, I think you've dealt with that very, very well.
Thank you.
Clearly it's motivating you. You're using it powerfully. This is why there's the exercises of, hey, imagine your funeral.
Right.
What do people say about you? This is used by a lot of coaches as a motivational exercise. Yeah. And you've taken that on and you've made your own version of it. Where these fears are more concerning, I think, is when people aren't even aware that the fear is there. Yeah. So as I say, they're hitting the same amount of money over and over again.
Yeah.
They're finding the relationship. They keep finding the same type of woman with the same issue.
The toxic stuff.
And it's just toxic
Repetitive
relationships
pattern.
over and over again. And it's anywhere you're seeing a repetitive pattern that if you looked at it from the outside, you'd be able to give better advice to somebody else. So anytime, any part of your life, you'd be like, hey, yeah, well, if this was my friend doing this, I'd tell them to do X, Y, and Z, but you're not doing X, Y, and Z. That's where there's a subconscious program running, because there's something overtaking the rational mind, the logical mind. So really this kind of work, mind's high performance, but obviously not everyone who needs this kind of work is a high performer, is just looking for anywhere where the most logical thing isn't the behavior that's being followed. And you would understand that from the outside.
Yeah. What is something, Elliot, that the average person can start doing like right away to start moving forward in life? I mean, I know you got an app that, you have different levels in your own coaching program. Maybe speak to why coaching is important. What is someone that's not on a big budget can start doing right now to start advancing their position in life? Some practical advice, if you will.
So we've got an app, Primed Mind.
Primed Mind, okay.
Primed Mind, yep. You can download that for free, and then there are upgrades, but there's about 40 audios that are just for free, and you can start working with hypnotherapy, utilizing that.
Amazing.
We then also have coaching from low ticket to high ticket. Doing this sort of hypnotherapy work, we have a number of coaches, and that's if you go to elliotroe.com and click for apply, we can find someone for you there. But really the key thing is this... have a look at that list. So actually spend some time building that list out that I described earlier.
That's good.
What are the top performers doing? And then have an idea of how much money that's costing you. And if it's costing you a lot of money, find a coach. It doesn't have to be one of my coaches, but find someone who's going to help you get through those issues.
Yes.
Because... oftentimes, people will be reaching out to me and it's quite clear they're literally costing themselves millions of dollars a year. And then they're choosing to not work with a coach to help fix it faster. And it's actually really expensive to not fix those problems.
So
I would add a dimension to your recommendation. I think it seems like it could apply just to have someone put down their ideal as a man or woman.
Life.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so you could put, what's my ideal function as a father? And what are the top 10 things I would imagine a great father would be doing?
Should be doing.
And you'll see 3 that you're not doing. And is that not?
That's a wonderful exercise. Exactly
you know what
the
to
same
do.
exercise. Yeah. And you can do it as a husband.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would the best husband in the world be doing?
Sure.
Where are the ticks and the crosses? This isn't a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
But I find this is where it's you say people know what to do, and I agree. Most people have a general sense of what needs to be done, and this is a great example of how someone can prove it to themselves when they just write down what they know they ought to be doing. But I think this is where spending money is actually one of the most beneficial uses of investment dollars on planet Earth, is making investment in yourself, because the act of the transaction alone puts pressure on you to perform. It acts as an accountability measure, unlike any other type of accountability in the world from my perspective. I spent big money on bringing in coaching, And it was the transaction that got me to move far more than it was the coach. No offense to some of the best coaches in the world that I've hired. It was the transaction that if I'm going to put money on it, I got to do it. I got to do it. I just spent $250,000 on 6 meetings. Like, that's big money. Like, 6 hours, like that kind of pressure that it put on me to find the ROI. And ROI became really is something that was very clear. The power of ROI when you invest in yourself, it literally shows up in minutes. But that's the accountability that I think people really need, but they're so scared to write the checks to put money on themselves. They won't bet on themselves. It's essentially what it is. Yeah. But then it is important to bring the right person in alignment with what you want to do. Undeniable. But that part right there may be one of these little secrets to movement in life, is that people that may play big, they write checks, they make investments. Even, I'm not saying you spend your last dollar, but they make investments in themselves first.
Yeah.
And you'd carry that investment forward. If you invest in yourself, if you level yourself up, you take that forward for the rest of your
100%.
life.
Never ends.
So it's something. I mean, obviously, I'm heavily biased towards mindset.
Me too.
I believe. It's one of these things where if you don't know what to do, get yourself a strategic or a business coach.
Sure.
If you know what to do and you can't do it, find a mindset coach. And and if you're just saying, hey, why would I invest? Almost everyone obviously that I'm working with, everyone's using a coach because I'm a coach. But just in general, successful people have a team. Yeah. I have personal trainers, masseuses, therapists, coaches. Yep. I mean, I have this list of this team around me helping me do the things that I do in life.
That's right.
And everyone I know who's a high performer has some version of
I use Tom Brady a lot as my examples to people. I'm like, if Tom Brady, one of the best quarterbacks that's ever lived, needs a quarterback coach, what makes you think you're so arrogant that you don't need a mindset coach or someone to help you perform better? Like, that's the best quarterback in the world. You think that fat coach right there of his is better than him at quarterbacking, but yet he still hires that person? My point is it's clear that who the coach should be in that scenario, from a person that doesn't understand the power of accountability, the power of seeing blind spots, of pushing you with the uncomfortable, of getting you to act when you don't necessarily feel like it, or seeing things that you just can't see because you have tunnel vision. There's just so many different aspects. But if Tom Brady can use a coach, and here's what's interesting about Tom Brady, this is a guy that has a stretching coach, a breathing coach, a yoga coach, a strength core coach, an arm coach, like every level of life he's perfecting at the highest levels. I mean, he literally has someone count every calorie, look at every single piece of food that goes in his body. And so I use that a lot. If it's not too good for Tom Brady, then what makes it you think it's too good for it,
Yeah. It is completely accurate. I mean, it's a shortcut.
It is a shortcut.
And the more responsibility you can pass to others, like my personal trainer turns up at my house 5 days a week. I'm gonna do my workout.
Yeah,
they're here. I don't have to
I would
think
add
about
one
it,
last element that I think is crucial. Is I really understand the value of proximity. I'm a master at my life, really learning how to leverage proximity. I do it with heart, soul, and conviction. There's always a real why and a message beneath the surface. I use it as a tool and a resource, but it's my heart. It's real. I'm vulnerable with it. Like I use it with passion and purpose, but I'm very aware of the power of proximity. And that literally is another way to fast forward things in your life, because it brings you to different relationships. It takes eyeballs that are scattered around, and it all of a sudden focuses them on you. And what you do with that's important. So you better have a powerful why or mission. If you're going to get the attention, you better then be able to use it to actually leave a real valuable mark and do something with it. But a lot of people just don't understand all the different ways to really master coaching and get you to have so much momentum in your life, like so much fast forward, like energy that's always going one direction, that even when you fail, you're failing so far forward. Like failures are actually your biggest gifts when you can do it with a mindset coach like you, because everything is a win. There's silver linings in everything. Yeah. And I just love this conversation. I know we're coming up on a hard stop here, but trying to just put so much juice into this audience out here, Elliot. What else, Matt? I know that we got a few minutes left. I don't want to hog the end here.
Yeah, the question I had was, obviously, as a mindset and performance coach, you're doing deep, particularized hypnotherapy or otherwise work with someone. As a coach yourself, do you also find value in like a deep mentor relationship? Do you have people who know all the ifs, ands, and buts of your life that you disclose your private matters to?
How close do you get with them? Is that the question?
So I have with my own coaches. You
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, like
Or
beyond
So-
beyond hypnotherapy. Yeah,
beyond hypnotherapy. Yeah, so I have a number of coaches and mentors that I utilize. So I really feel it's one of those things with coaches. Your coaches should have coaches.
yeah,
And if they don't, there's a congruence issue.
Yeah.
Because, I'm selling this because I believe I can impact people and I can help their life because I can give a third party perspective. So in all cases, I have my own business coach, my own therapist, my own personal trainers, et cetera, et cetera. I even do energy work.
Yeah,
Like there's all sorts that I have lined up. Because it's so powerful to have this third party perspective. None of us can see our blind spots. And if someone tells you, hey, I'm the finished product, I don't need anyone to help me,
Brady.
as you say, Tom Brady.
Yeah, there you go.
Like I see it as a red flag if somebody's saying, I don't need help anymore. I question
Huge
if
red
they're
flag.
still if they're still evolving.
Red flag.
And maybe at some stage in my career I'm going to say, hey, I don't need to evolve anymore. I'm done. But
Yes.
I see that as a big
life
concern.
commitment.
I just see it as just this is personal growth, and all of us can always use an outside ear.
We've done some really powerful interviews, and I've really now scavenged the planet, and I'm using my time effectively to get this one question out there many different times over to so many different people. And it always comes back to the same thing. The people that I admire most that have big footprints and a lot of influence, which is a lot of impact in the world, that are doing things that I want to be doing, when it comes right down to it, like always in the top 3, worst case scenario, top 5 things that advice they would give, it's peer groups, mentorship, and coaching. It's all 3, and they are different. We got a really clear distinction on our last podcast or a few back with, was it Pace Morby?
Steve Pataski.
Steve Pataski, a famous developer. But his big distinction between the 3 of having a peer group, having a coach, and a mentor, which he really described the difference. But it really is that he classifies that all the same. But one of the most important things on planet Earth that a human can possibly do is to put themselves in that environment. You have to be willing to pay the ticket price to get there, and that's where people flop out. They want everything for free, and I would challenge people that if it was for free, you wouldn't leverage it correctly. You wouldn't show up. You wouldn't do anything. It's the money that's just as important as the person, because you had to work hard for it, and you had to put some skin in the game. Once you have blood in, you can get blood out, baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's where the amplification comes from.
It's so true.
There has to be an investment for it to multiply.
Yeah. 100%.
The process.
Elliot, I love you, brother. I
man.
think you
Thank you
are
so
an
much.
absolute legend in your space. I want to drive as many people and eyeballs to this as we can. We're going to build some beautiful content. We definitely got to come back to you and do this again. Maybe we can have you in person out here to Coeur d'Alene to our mastermind group that we
Awesome.
do. I would love him as a guest for
fascinating.
this group out here in Coeur d'Alene.
be
So, Elliot, let's connect again, and we'll get you out here to Coeur d'Alene. It's literally an hour flight from where you're at.
Easy game.
Easy. It'll be cool. So we're definitely going to connect. But Elliot, I want to make sure we take you to, it's elliotroe.com, correct?
Yep. So ELLIOTROE.com. As I say, you can find the coaching stuff there. Just apply. We've got coaches for everyone, different price ranges.
Amazing.
And then primedmind.com or just PrimeMind or App Store, Android. Download it. Try it you can try it for free. So,
Awesome.
And
to try it.
I'll just say
Listen
one of
to
the
my
most
voice.
What's that?
refreshing. One of the most refreshing things about you is how you don't glamorize your craft. You're like, this is just really straightforward. Just apply the tool.
What it is.
And so many people in your space glamorize what they're doing. I really love how straightforward and frank. I can see how you win the trust of high performing people because there's no oil or snake or nothing special here. It's just deep work.
It just is what
It
it
is
is.
what
Oh,
it is.
snake oil,
I love
baby.
it.
I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, I did a talk last week, and the feedback I got was like, "Hey, it looked like you just got on stage and weren't trying to public speak. You were just having a conversation with us." It's
that's
like,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean it draws me.
Was.
You're trustworthy.
Yeah.
It draws me to you instantly. I'm like, you're a straight shooter. So thank you for your time.
I can't wait to have you out here, Elliot. Thank you,
Appreciate
brother.
you
We'll talk
guys.
to you soon, my man.
All right,
catch you
thanks,
soon.
Elliot.
Cheers. Bye bye.
See you, brother.
So we still have to do the outro.
Hold on real
Oh,
quick.
Elliot,
do we need him?
hang
Do we need
tight.
him?
Do you need me to stay for
The
the
recording.
2 seconds.
uploading thing?
Yeah, do we need him to stay for the uploading? I'm going to get you here. Whoop, whoop. All right, here. You see this, everyone?
Do you want to hit
Elliot
stop
Roe in the
recording?
house. Elliot
Colton,
Roe.
shouldn't
Elliot
we
Roe.
hit stop recording so it
That's for
uploads?
Instagram.
Us.
What's that? Okay, so hey, if you guys enjoyed that and you want a lot more of this content, go follow, like, and subscribe, Man on a Mission. You can find us wherever things are streamed. Check you next time. Is that good?
Yeah.
I like it when I'm weird. Okay.
So can we hit stop record and
Now,
then
how do I hit it? Elliot's got to go, so.
Yeah, if we can, because I just want to make sure we don't lose
My
it if
side?
Here, hold on.
Elliot's
He's going to
gotta
log
go.
us out, Elliot, and then you can run. If you need to jump on a
Yeah,